Hey, hi, howdy. Last week we talked about how before Jesus could start his ministry, he went into the desert and fasted for 40 days, and that he was met by the tempter, but that he resisted all of those temptations. Now, in this week's story, Jesus has one more thing left to do before he can start his ministry. And that thing is he needs his disciples, right? His followers. So, the stories of how Jesus gets his disciples are very interesting. And so I'm going to do my best to make sense of them, but there's a part of it that it's always going to be a little bit mysterious. So, the first thing, Jesus, it says that he is walking along the Sea of Galilee. And so maybe you've like done hikes around Lake Murray. Maybe that's like a good way to picture it, that there's a big body of water and Jesus is walking alongside of it. Now, this is a very big, it's much bigger than Lake Murray. It's a sea. And there are fishermen getting ready to go out onto boats to go fish. And there's two in particular, Peter and Andrew. And it says as Jesus is walking past them, he's like, "Come, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And it says that Peter and Andrew immediately drop their nets and go follow Jesus. Now, that's the part that seems crazy, right? They give up their entire life, everything they've known. They were fishermen. That's what they were always going to be, fishermen. They just give it up to go follow the stranger. That seems crazy. Well, the best way that I can make sense of it is Jesus was a rabbi, right? A religious leader. Now, rabbis were like the highest, the best job that you could think to have. And if you were a follower of a rabbi, that means one day you might be a rabbi yourself. And a fisherman, I mean, it's a fine job, but it's not the best job that everyone wants. So, what you have to imagine is there are these fishermen who have an okay job, but not the most desirable job. And they're fishing, and then a rabbi approaches you and says, "Would you too like to be a rabbi someday?" And of course, they're going to be like, "What? Are you serious? Like, I can have the best job ever, the most respected job in society? Yes, please. I'll take it," right? And so that is a part of why they just immediately drop their nets. The other part is there's obviously something very special about Jesus, very attractive, that draws people to him. And so they drop their nets. And it says that Jesus continues on a little further down the Sea of Galilee, and he sees two other brothers, James and John. And he's like, "Come on, follow me." And they too give up their fishing job and go follow Jesus. And we hear about a few more stories about Jesus getting his disciples. One of them is Matthew. And Matthew is the guy who wrote the book, Matthew. Do you know what Matthew's job was? He was a tax collector. So again, tax collectors, most of them were pretty wealthy, but they had the reputation of being dishonest, that they would take extra money that didn't actually belong to them. And so it's actually kind of crazy that Jesus would even approach a tax collector, because people would think, why would you spend time with them? And it's even more crazy that Jesus would say, "Come be my disciple," because tax collectors were like, "No, you don't talk to them. They're dishonest. You don't trust them." But Jesus sees the heart of people, and he says, "Come follow me, be my disciple." And guess what Matthew does? Same thing. He just completely gives up his job, goes and follows Jesus over and over and over. And I think we can apply this to our lives today. Maybe there are things in our life that make us unhappy, things that we don't want to be doing, things that are not exciting. And I think God and his purpose for our life will always be appealing and exciting and draw us to it. And it might be scary to go in an unexpected direction, to do something new, but we have to trust that God is there leading us ahead of us, right? Just like Jesus would lead his disciples. So, if you ever feel in your heart God calling you to do something, really listen to that voice and think, is this God calling me to do this? And do I trust him enough to follow him? So that is the story for today. Next week, we finally start with Jesus and his ministry, the amazing, wonderful things that Jesus is going to do for the world. So that's next week. I'll talk to you then.